Hey there, this is Larry Osborne with another one of our daily doses, and we continue to look at some of the hidden gems in Scripture. And I want to look at one today that jumped out at me after thinking that I knew the passage really well. It jumped out at me after many years of even having taught the passage. It's found in the book of Daniel. I was working on a book called Thriving in Babylon, which was a look at how Daniel didn't just survive, but he thrived in the most godless of environments. And I thought, that'd make a great book for us as Christians today. And as I was starting my deep dive into Daniel, I realized something in the first two verses that I'd never seen. Part of it is I always thought of Daniel as an adventure story, kind of a great Sunday school curriculum with stories about Daniel in the lion's den, his three friends thrown into a fiery furnace, and just some other really pretty cool stories there. But in reality, Daniel is an adult primer for how to survive and how to thrive and honor God in a godless environment. So as I began to look at through those adult eyes, I started looking at his book, and then I realized that it's not a diary, if you will. He's looking back at the end of his life and just doing some highlights. And so he starts out his autobiography, like any author would, with a couple of statements that we need to understand because they set the context for everything else in the book. As it were, everything he thought, his value system, and all of his actions. And then it hit me. Because these verses that I had so quickly flown by before so I could get to the meat of the story are really not just the foundation of the story, they're the cornerstone of the foundation. They read like this, Daniel chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, that godless, evil, damnable king, the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem, and he besieged it. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, along with some of the articles from the temple of God. And these he carried off to the temple of his god, the demon god Baal, and he put them in the treasure house of his God. In other words, Daniel says, before I start telling you my story, you need to understand that when Nebuchadnezzar came and besieged and conquered our country, when he raided the temple and took devoted things to God and brought them into the temple of his demon god, when he kidnapped me and a bunch of other young nobles and carried us off into Babylon, all of this was because the Lord delivered these things over. In other words, God's in control of who's in control. And that was a cornerstone of everything Daniel thought, every value he had, and every decision and action he took. How different our life would be if in the midst of the things that are incredibly confusing, and to say the least in Daniel's case, very much against what we would vote for or choose or want to see happen in our life, if we were to simply step back and always know the Lord's in control of who's in control. I dare say that'd make it a lot easier to do what he says to do, instead of panicking and feeling like, you know what, this one I got to take into my own hands. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, evil, damnable Nebuchadnezzar besieged Jerusalem, raided the temple, and it was the Lord who delivered those things to him. Wow. Think about that today. No matter where you are, what you're experiencing, or what you're feeling about who's in control.